What's up, guys? Dr. D here. Let's talk about our brains today. Some of us want more memory. Some of us want more concentration. Some of us feel brain fog all day. You know, go from the kitchen, go to the living room, and it's like, what did I do? What am I doing here? I was going to do something here. Or you can't remember where you put your car keys, or so on and so forth. And some of us just want to keep improving their brains as much as we can. That's my case. That's the thing I want to optimize the most, which is my brain. So today we're going to talk about certain things, even for a mom that's in gestation, right, with the baby in her belly, or planning to have a baby, or breastfeeding, things that'll help increase the IQ of that child, which is crazy. So your brain, you need to take care of your brain. Your brain needs to be like a garden, that you're giving it the right nutrients, that you're cutting the weeds, you're not letting certain things get to your brain, because there's things that can hurt your neurotransmitters. Today we're going to talk a lot about neurotransmitters, most namely GABA, acetylcholine, serotonin, and dopamine. But did you know, for example, that, cadmium displaces dopamine, and lead displaces GABA. And things like this in your environment displace your resources to have a proper physiology. What do I mean by that? A proper moving and functioning system, human system. But your brain's part of it. It's an organ. Because lots of times you say, oh man, I'm not feeling right today. I think it's just in my mind. No, yeah, mindset's very important. And I always will start by addressing mindset. But when we look at the body from a holistic point of view, which I will always talk from that point of view, the biochemistry precedes the physiology. What are you going to do if you don't have the resource to get the system moving? If you don't have the gasoline to put in the car, don't expect the car to move. So if you don't have the tryptophan that's going to make the 5-HTP, that's going to make the serotonin, that's going to decrease your anxiety, and it's going to be your inhibitory neurotransmitter, that when you close your eyes is going to turn into melatonin and help you sleep, don't expect not to be anxious. Don't expect to sleep well. For example, you see the importance of what I just said? The biochemistry has to be right for your physiology to function. So the biochemistry has to be right for your brain to function the way you want. And also at the same time, for certain toxins not to be present in your life. Okay, because toxicity in our environment is rampant. We have a lot of heavy metals in our environment. We have a lot of different food particles, etc., like gluten, that cause issues in your body, causing issues at the blood-brain barrier. So I know I just said gluten, but gluten will cause issues at the leaky gut level. So your gut barrier leading all the way to your blood-brain barrier, right? Today, I really want to delve a little deep into the topic of having a good brain, okay? And where you take care of your brain, where your brain keeps improving, and where you're not feeling like you're not living the life you want because your brain's not keeping up. That kind of sucks if you think about it. You know, and all of us at one point or another have probably been victim of this, and so have I. I remember when years ago in medical school, in the medical school library, I remember this one particular day that it took me 8 hours to get through a page. All right, I'm talking about 8 hours to get through a page of what I was trying to read, and which I didn't get through it. Because obviously if it takes you 8 hours to get through a page, you don't know anything. Yeah, that's the most frustrating part. Sometimes you're so committed, you're so resourceful, you're so on it that you will get through that one thing in 30 seconds. It was a technical medical page that I was trying to read, but 8 hours on that thing. And I remember even dropping a tear or two, and I'm saying to myself, something's not right. Now, for your brain to function, right, the first thing, I'm always going to hit the same principles. We have to remove toxicity. We're going to talk about certain toxins that can be hurting you, okay? But another thing that's really important, you need to have proper hormonal levels, both estrogen and progesterone for women, especially postmenopausal women. This is huge for you guys, huge. I can't stress this enough. Your brain runs a lot on estrogen, progesterone, etc. And men, the testosterone. Women, you also have testosterone levels, but it's not going to be as prevalent in men for that brain functioning. See, an older man lots of times will come in to the office and, you know, his wife will say, oh my God, he's getting lost, etc. Or he's just not finding himself correctly, whatever. You give him a little bit of bioidentical testosterone replacement, give it about 3 to 6 months, tell Mr. Harry to come back. Hey, Mr. Harry, how do you feel? Well, I'll be damned, I feel really good. Mr. Harry, you finding yourself around your community better? You finding yourself on a map better? I'll be damned, I think I am, sir. I think I do feel better on that regard, because the testosterone is responsible for that man's spatial recognition. That's what allows us to be hunters. That's what allows us to think strategically on a geographical landscape. Really important. But there's other things that correlate with that. So we are obsessed as humans with neurotransmitters. And I know some of you guys were like, I never even really heard anybody talk too much about this. And I know it's a kind of underplayed topic, okay? And maybe some of you are well versed in this. But a vast majority of our population has not heard much on neurotransmitters. So, but then again, I'm telling you, we're obsessed with neurotransmitters. Yeah, because we biohack all the time. Happy hour, you're biohacking GABA. GABA-aminobutyric acid, GABA. That's a neurotransmitter in your brain. It's an inhibitory neurotransmitter. It's the one that calms you down, gets the ease off. That makes you feel happy at happy hour. Okay. So when you drink alcohol, when you take a benzodiazepine, something like Xanax or Valium or one of those kind of substances, you upregulate GABA in your brain. Okay. Or conversely, let's talk a little bit about serotonin. So when you go to your doctor and your doctor decides that you have anxiety and he gives you an anxiety type medication, so like something like an SSRI, like a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. I'll say it again, listen to the name of this class of medications. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So it inhibits the reuptake of serotonin. Okay, where in the synaptic cleft, so where the the neurons are coming, they don't touch. Neurons don't really touch. They sit right there. Okay, and then the serotonin keeps jumping back and forth, right? But it inhibits the reuptake, so it doesn't let it uptake it back into the initial neuron. So it just keeps dumping it here to the second neuron, and then the person's going to feel the benefits of feeling serotonin. Now, you don't have to be a doctor to understand a little bit what I just told you might not be so good for your health, because you're forcing a system to do what it's not designed to do, okay? Instead of giving it the resources so it does what it needs to do. See, 90% of your serotonin is made in your belly. Neurotransmitter, belly, 90% of your serotonin is made in your belly, okay? And like I was saying, if you don't have the tryptophan, if you don't eat the tryptophan, right, found in bananas, warm turkey, after Thanksgiving dinner, everybody's kind of like sleepy. Well, tryptophan makes you sleepy. Warm milk has the tryptophan as well. We'll talk about milk. I'm not advocating for milk, by the way, guys. We'll talk about milk in another lecture. But so these things have tryptophan. Then the tryptophan needs to convert to 5-HTP, which then converts to serotonin. Okay, and like I said, when you close your eyes, your pineal gland takes that and converts it to melatonin. Okay, now, if these things aren't balanced out, you start to live a life that you're like, oh my God, I feel this way. I was just talking to somebody yesterday, and like, oh, she's like, I feel anxious, but I think it's, it's life. Psychosomatic, circumstantial. Yeah, no, it's not. So lots of times we're out of balance, or most of the time we're out of balance biochemically, and then the physiology doesn't respond to the stimulus your life is giving it. Okay? And then I will admit to you guys, it's a mess out there to understand biochemistry. To tell you the truth, almost nobody, virtually nobody, is talking about this in a correct way, right? Because you have your personal training community, etc., but they're talking, a great deal about macronutrients. So what are macronutrients? Proteins, carbs, and fats. There's one more, but we don't eat it, which is DNA. Okay, but that's considered a macronutrient. Then we have micronutrients, which is a big part of the topic today, which is vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, amino acids. That's really important, okay? We pay very close attention to things like these trace minerals. For example, one that I really like to talk about is molybdenum. Okay, and when you're not methylating appropriately, so you're submethylating, right? There's going to be a lot of tongue twisters today, as you can tell, and it's okay. You just keep going. It's like life. You can't make things perfect oftentimes, man. Just keep moving, all right? That's keep moving is mindset, okay? So, and I'm raw. This is me. So, anyways, when you're not methylating appropriately, right, you'll have certain issues in your body, right? And you will have, for example, deficiency of this trace mineral that I'm talking to you guys, molybdenum, right? There'll be other issues you're going to have. You're going to have excess ammonium. You're not going to be able to produce nitric oxide. Deficiency in serotonin and dopamine, increase in homocysteine. Many of you are starting to pay more attention to this as it relates to when you do your blood work. You don't want increased levels of homocysteine. Important that you also map out your MTHFR. I know, long acronym. And it's not the bad word you guys are thinking, MTHFR. It's not that. It's not an acronym for that. It actually stands for methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase. So the variations in MTHFR can cause you to have depression, anxiety, et cetera, et cetera. But if you tweak your micronutrient status, and you'll see a change in your homocysteine levels to decrease, and you'll also see improvement on your day-to-day, right? So methylation is a very important process in the functioning of the body. And when you're submethylating, right, you start not to feel good. And I always say these are one of the four pillars of health: submethylation, oxidation, glycation, inflammation. You take care of these four things, all of a sudden you don't have to worry anymore about cholesterol. You don't have to worry about the neurotransmitter problems. You don't have to worry about the hormonal problems. You don't have to worry about the anxiety, the sleep disturbance, and so on and so forth. That's what I hope you guys come to a conclusion with me at the end of these lectures. It's like, oh, it's actually simpler than I thought. I don't want you guys to get discouraged and dismayed because somebody's here is making things more complex than they really are. No, I want you to understand health for what it is, but when you boil it down, to me, there's four pillars of aging, four pillars of throwing the body out of balance, four pillars of just maleficence in your body. And those are those four pillars: submethylation, oxidation, glycation, inflammation, okay? So I gave you a few examples of what happens when you're not methylating appropriately. One of them being huge, you don't have serotonin and dopamine. Now, dopamine is another neurotransmitter that we're obsessed with, right? I gave you guys the example on GABA and happy hour. I give you the example on those SSRI medications, and when you tell your doctor you're anxious and he gives you some medication to increase your serotonin. Now, dopamine. Now, all these drugs, especially a lot of the street drugs, etc., that cause you to be excited and to be in a good mood and enjoy life for a little bit, and it's short-lived, they release dopamine, okay? And dopamine is a wonderful neurotransmitter. I'm not saying the drugs are wonderful. I'm saying that having proper levels of dopamine is really good. You don't want to have too much dopamine because there's some diseases that are connected with lack of balance in dopamine, so such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and you don't want to have lack thereof of dopamine too, which is connected to Parkinson, etc., and older age. That's how you medicate it with levodopa, right? So dopamine is a very, very important neurotransmitter, and when you don't have dopamine, certain things are going to happen. You're not going to be excited. Your concentration goes down. Ability to memorize things goes down, etc. But just it's an excitatory neurotransmitter. You feel really good. So a lot of these medications, especially prescription medications that are given to people with ADHD, etc., which I have also been diagnosed with ADHD. I don't have ADHD. It's my superpower. Okay, I'm not going to live here with a label in my head. Yeah, I'm a high energy guy. I'm like the last guy to make it through med school, but we did it, right? We're here and we got through it. It was very difficult for me. It was out of character for me. I'm the fast talker, et cetera, and I like just high-paced environments. And to me, to sit down, hunker down, and study for so many hours was very difficult. You know, I told this to a doctor one day. He's like, "Oh, well, maybe you have ADHD." Well, and I bought it at the time, and I was actually prescribed Adderall for a few months, and it was one of the worst, probably the worst thing that's ever happened to me. That thing was terrible for me, and I didn't do well with it. And it's not something that I would recommend to anybody. Anybody. It's an amphetamine. So think about it for a second. It's an amphetamine. It's not good for you as a chemical. The chemical itself causes many issues, pulmonary fibrosis, etc., which is like scarring of the lungs over time. But ultimately, too, what it's doing is dumping a lot of neurotransmitter again into the synaptic cleft. And if you use those kind of substances for a really long time, what you end up doing is exhausting those adrenal glands, is taking the body out of bounds because you're just pushing it and pushing it. So amphetamines, cocaine, the phenylephrine, pseudoephedrine, even caffeine, which is a methylated xanthine. These are all methylated xanthines. You can tell by the terminal ending of their names, "ine," right? They're pushing your body to the next level, okay? But is it good to have it like that for long periods of time? Absolutely not. Okay, so then we ask the question, why is this person not producing the dopamine? And there's things that cause you to have issues with dopamine. Like I told you guys before, cadmium will cause issues, will displace your dopamine and cause toxicity to that dopamine, leading into issues that you're going to feel on a day-to-day basis. You're going to feel tired, fatigued. You're not just going to feel excited. It's hard to be motivated, right? Oh, it's motivation's just in my head. No, it's not. It's also in your biochemistry, brother and sister. So it's something important for you guys to understand, right? Just like I told you, GABA, lead, causes an issue with GABA. Cadmium is going to cause an issue with dopamine, right? Yeah, so if you're looking to increase dopamine in your body, there's certain things that you can do, right? First of all, like I said, we have to be careful with environmental agents that are causing issues to our neurotransmitters, in this case dopamine, and like I told you guys, cadmium. But for example, you could use tyrosine with vitamin B6 or pyridoxine, but it's important that we use it in P5P format, which facilitates absorption. Phenylalanine, you can also do L-DOPA in the form of mucuna purins, thiamine, okay, chromium. I'm a big fan of chromium, and overall, sometimes the meshing of these guys together, a little bit of, I'm going to go to sleep in a little bit. I'll take a little bit of theanine before I go to sleep with some melatonin and magnesium and some GABA. I actually do that before I fall asleep, and it helps me to have restful sleep. Oh, and let me go on a peptide tangent. One peptide that I really like for sleep is called DSIP, Delta Sleep Inducing Peptide. And that's a peptide that triggers GABA and glutamate, which is another neurotransmitter, and allows you to have deep restful sleep, okay? And it's not only a peptide that's good for sleep, thus the name Delta Sleep Inducing Peptide, but it helps there to be an increase in testosterone. So it's going to impact LH, luteinizing hormone, in your brain. I'm not going to get too technical on that right now. And it's going to increase testosterone. It's anti-oncogenic, meaning anti-cancer. It's anti-inflammatory. It's a wonderful peptide, heavily studied for over 40 years. Wonderful, wonderful peptide. So, but again, it's a sleep peptide, and where's it going to work? It's going to go work on GABA. So let's jump into the last and final neurotransmitter I want to talk about today. So we spoke a little bit about GABA, a little bit about serotonin, a little bit about dopamine. Now let's talk about acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is really important. That neurotransmitter is very heavy, for example, in Alzheimer's, right? Alzheimer's is also has another name. It's nothing more, nothing less than diabetes type 3 of the brain, right? Because when the person has diabetes, one thing that diabetes does, it destroys nervous tissue, right? So what it's going to do, it's going to hurt your neurons, right? So that's why you have issues with your retina, you're going to have diabetic retinopathy, or you're going to have issues with the periphery of your limbs, most namely your feet, etc. You're going to have peripheral neuropathy. That's why many times the person has to amputate, unfortunately, when they have diabetes. And so where do you have most amount of nerves? In your brain, right? So having the diabetes cause an issue in your brain, or a diabetes type scenario causing a brain issue, is also known as Alzheimer's, and also known as diabetes type 3 of the brain, right? So sure, there's a lot of other things that correlate with Alzheimer's. For example, the lack of acetylcholine. Acetylcholine being a very important neurotransmitter in Alzheimer's. Now, acetylcholine is super important. Oh, and there's a joke about Alzheimer's. If you think you have Alzheimer's, you actually don't have Alzheimer's, okay? Because when you do have Alzheimer's, there's a little joke that says, somebody goes to the doctor and tells the doctor, hey, I think I have Alzheimer's. Why? Because I'm forgetting things, I can't remember things, etc. No, if you have Alzheimer's, somebody actually has to take you there to the doctor, and it's usually somebody else that'll take you. So I wouldn't be too concerned if you think you have Alzheimer's, okay? It's usually a loved one that will take the person to the doctor. The person themselves won't know. They're the last one to know. And unfortunately, it's a tough disease. It's one of those diseases we call, disease of the family, because it impacts the whole family. But getting back to acetylcholine, which is this wonderful neurotransmitter, that one's very, very responsible for your learning process, for motor function, cognition. I wrote a few notes here, as you guys can see. I'm looking for them. Things I really don't want to forget to talk about on the Alzheimer's. Yeah, so recent memory, learning process, mobility, and cognitive ability. Okay, and it's majorly important that your acetylcholine levels are adequate. And another heavy metal that plays a huge role in messing up your acetylcholine levels is aluminum. You definitely don't want that guy in your life, okay? And you're gonna find these things in your deodorants, etc. You nowadays see a lot of deodorants that say aluminum free, and so on and so forth. So understanding, for example, a lot of your beauty products and perfumes and so forth that you're wearing, a lot of things, for example, all the way from the pool that you're going to with the chlorine. I know I was talking about cadmium. I have not said chlorine yet, but for example, that's going to displace iodine in your thyroid. Iodine is super important. We'll talk a little bit now about iodine. Also for the functioning even of your children's brains. There's a lot of studies, especially iodine. The use of iodine is very, very old. So in 1829, Dr. Jean Lugal came up with this beautiful formula that I really like to help supplement iodine. Unfortunately, we have a huge fear of using iodine nowadays. This kind of really started with a study in 1965 by Wolf Chaikoff, two guys, Wolf and Chaikoff. Wolf then became the president of the NIH, if I'm not mistaken, and they had done some studies on rats where they gave excessive amounts of iodine to these rats, where basically the thyroid just went unresponsive, and this extrapolated, etc., to basically our books nowadays, medical books, where doctors are very afraid to use iodine. But for example, a child that doesn't have iodine, any traditional doctor will know, he's born with cretinism and has an extremely low IQ, unfortunately, right? So they're going to have some, and they're even going to look a little different, right? Not only is the IQ low, but they're going to have pot belly, their tongue's going to be protruded, etc. They're going to look distinctively different, right? So iodine is something that's in your body and your body needs, okay? But there's anti-nutrients in your environment, things that are hurting your body on a day-to-day, all the way from trans fats, which they're actually taking vitamins and minerals out, and you're eating that stuff, or soft drinks. It takes about 32 cups of water 32 cups of water to replace some of the maleficence that 1 cup of soda will do in terms of pH, etc. Okay, the pH of soft drinks is about 2 point something. The pH, it's very acidic. Your blood pH is about 7.45. Okay, so to rebalance that, you need about 32 cups of water. Pretty crazy, right? So, but going back to that relationship of iodine and the importance of iodine for the development of, for example, of a baby's brain, right? There's protocols, okay, to help the baby's IQ, even for a mom that's looking to have a baby, that proper levels of iodine are very important, right? Especially when she has the baby inside of her or she's breastfeeding. My wife's actually breastfeeding. Our baby's a month and 3 days right now, and she's breastfeeding. And virtually almost every day, I ask her, "Are you taking your iodine? Are you taking your iodine?" Or her Lugol's iodine, 2 little drops, and some coconut water, which is super important also as well for a mom that's gestating because of the caprylic acids that are in there for the baby's brain development. Vitamin D, or wrongfully called vitamin D, hormone D, one of the most powerful steroidal hormones, right? And then omegas, right, for the baby's brain development. Very, very important. Okay, DHA specifically, very important for the baby's brain development. Vitamin D3, obviously, you need to have the K2 and the magnesium for the D3 to function. The iodine, the DHA, and the omega. Okay, very, 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 very important. Okay, so these things for the baby's brain to develop accordingly are very important. Don't you think it's also important for your brain to develop? Continue to develop accordingly, for you to take care of that brain like a garden? These elements are all very important. And going back to the iodine is really, really important, specifically for the thyroid too. The thyroid also has you feeling a certain way, right? If your thyroid's not balanced, it can have you feeling depressed or anxious and low energy or excessive levels of improper energy, etc., where you're in a condition of hypo or hyperthyroidism. So iodine's not only going to affect your brain, it's going to affect many things. Skin health, many cancers proliferate also because of the lack of iodine. And don't take my word for this on this. One of the biggest researchers in iodine is David Brownstein. All you got to do is go find his books on Amazon. There's plenty of research that this man has done. A few other ones, but he's one of the biggest authorities in iodine. It's a great book talking about iodine and why you need iodine. And he even talks about autism in children and the lack thereof of iodine leading to issues like this. Okay, really, really important. A person that's not sweating many times is an indicator of lack of iodine, okay? And which is connected to skin cancers and so on and so forth. Now, check this out. When you go into a pool or a sauna, right, and it's there's chlorine, right? Especially when you're in the sauna and they heat up that chlorine, and you're thinking you're sitting there and relaxing and doing really good for yourself, and you're just breathing in all that chlorine. What do you think that's doing for you? No bueno. It's not good. You're taking out your iodine from your thyroid and just displacing it from your body and so on and so forth. Not good, okay? So chlorine becomes a toxic halide, right? Just like fluorine or fluoride. Difference is one is negative. Fluoride is negatively charged and fluorine is not, but same thing. And then bromine, bromide. And these are all toxic halides, which they're found in foods, sodas, beverages, bakery products, toothpastes. And we think that water, it's found in our water supply, and those bottled waters. Look up the waters that don't have fluoride in them, for example. It's very rare. It's hard to find. I know that my wife's a dentist. She spent I don't know how many days, but it feels like it was 2-3 days. She was really just trying to figure out, what water for us to actually, because sometimes you're out in the street, which brand for us to go with. It was very difficult for us to really kind of narrow down a brand. So I'm not going to vouch for any brand right now, guys. Sorry. If we vouch for something, we really believe in it. But A lot of these things, they're found on your day to day, around you all the time. So there's studies, for example, showing that fluoride in toothpaste helps to lower cavities, and it's actually not true at all. Okay, or in a lot of our smart countries, right? They either never allowed fluoride to come in or they're taking it out, right? And I believe a lot of the Scandinavian countries, like Denmark and so forth, they don't have fluoride or very low levels of fluoride in their water and toothpaste products, etc. over there. So important thing is to understand how there is always toxicity around us, and you have to get smart about understanding this. Like, and if you can just disconnect today from today's lecture, you're like, okay, what are some action steps I can take? One of them is to really just your water. Start with water that you're consuming. Water filters at home. You should have good quality water filters at home. If I can get one person just to get on a proper water filter, guys, and I don't sell water filters. There's no links for water filters here. There's no interest in you. Go buy whatever water filter you guys think is correct. And that we're also still trying to see which ones we prefer to really advocate for. But we have our showers here they go through a water filter, etc. Or the water we bathe the baby, etc. Everything is super clean. We really try to be careful with this, but that's just the first action step that we can take today, just to make sure you guys don't have antimatter coming into your body to actually take nutrients, vitamins, and minerals out of your life, right? And then another thing, salt. Use good quality sea salt or pink Himalayan salt, because they're full of vitamins, minerals, trace minerals that your body really needs, right? When you don't use salt, you're actually hurting yourself. You're allowing for these toxic halides to wreak havoc in your body. So salt is very important. Whoever told you that salt's bad for you, yeah, that highly processed salt, for example, salt in potato chips and so forth, that's not good for you. Yeah, that does cause high blood pressure and so forth. But the good quality salt that God put in our earth, that's not bad for you. Okay, you need that. Okay, and to start wrapping things up today, for those of you that really want to take a strong action step in regards to this, data. Go collect data. You guys know that's always going to be one of our action steps that I'm going to suggest to you. To collect data on your body, to really map out how much neurotransmitter you have in your brain, right? Well, what are the levels of neurotransmitters? What are those levels of GABA, serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, epinephrine? Those are other neurotransmitters we didn't talk about today. Go see those levels in your brain, okay? Really important to understand that. Go see your homocysteine levels. Go map out an MTHFR. Ask your doctor to do an MTHFR on you, especially if you feel like on the mental health side you're not there, right? You understand MTHFR. Really important, and that's all connected with submethylation, etc. Because if you're not methylating appropriately, so if you're submethylating, you're not going to have the serotonin, you're not going to have the dopamine, you're not going to feel right, okay? And especially if you guys are craving that biohack, which could be the alcohol, could be the antidepressant, could be the street stimulants, illicit drugs, and so on and so forth. Perhaps there's something there that you guys need to replenish, some stuff you need to remove in your life that's going to make a huge difference in the quality of your life. Don't forget, the biochemistry precedes the physiology. And if your physiology is not there, don't expect to live the life that you want to live. Don't expect to have the outcomes out of this life that you want. And ultimately, don't expect a life of abundance. And that's a sad life. We want a life of abundance. And for you to have that life of abundance, your biochemistry needs to be right. We're going to do other topics. We're going to talk. This is a very, very vast topic about neurotransmitters and mental health and so on and so forth. We're going to do more discussions in regards to this topic. This is definitely going to have a part 2, part 3, part 4, etc. Because mental health is really important. It's a huge passion of mine. So today, I'll leave you with the summary of what we spoke about. We spoke a little bit about 4 neurotransmitters: dopamine, acetylcholine, GABA, and serotonin. I introduced the idea how certain hormones are very important also in conjunction with those neurotransmitters, and furthermore how certain toxins really displace a lot of these the functioning of these neurotransmitters, and where you start to feel a difference on your day-to-day basis, and you just feel like your mind's not there, you're not present, right? And we also spoke a little bit about iodine and the importance of iodine, especially on a mom that has a baby inside of her or is breastfeeding. And iodine is also very important for us adults, for thyroid, etc., for our thyroids, for prevention of certain cancers and so on and so forth, and also for our brain function. Okay, so don't dismiss these things. Don't dismiss when you guys turn this off and going into your bathroom, checking the toothpaste that you're using, checking the deodorant that you're using, seeing if it has the aluminum in there. You know, the deodorant, remember the aluminum, the acetylcholine, they don't get together. The acetylcholine has to do with Alzheimer's. I don't want to freak you guys out. That's not the goal. But I want to help you guys to live a pure life, a natural life, a life where you're going back to nature and getting those resources that you need to put in your body to live a higher functioning life of abundance, a life where you're connecting with your higher self, a life where you're ultimately connecting with your creator and living the life that you want. And don't forget to take care of your biochemistry. Don't forget to take care of your brain. Take good care of your brain. It's your garden. Get rid of those weeds there and feed it the things it needs to ultimately drive your ship. Your brain is driving your ship to a better life. Okay? It's not only about mindset. It's not only about hurrah, 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 and let's get motivated. It's hugely about biochemistry. Let's make sure your biochemistry is right. All right? You guys have a great night, great day, whatever time of the day you're watching this. And listen, like, subscribe, ask us questions, because it's based on those questions, those thoughts, comments, concerns, whatever it is, that we're going to know what information we can give to you guys. Okay? Don't forget, let's live a life of energy, a life of abundance, a life free of toxins, a life on your terms. All right, guys? Your physiology depends on it, and the life you want to live depends on it. Let's take care of that biochemistry. Let's take care of that brain, and ultimately, let's be better every day. All right? Love you all. God bless. Dr. D.